What if you found an alien girl hiding in your barn, and she told you a secret that would change everything? Meet Jake, a farm boy whose life turned upside down when he discovered Lyra, a glowing, silver-skinned alien with a dangerous secret. Hunted by a ruthless enemy called the Korax, Lyra revealed she carried the heart of Alara, a power that could save or destroy worlds. But when the Korax closed in, Lyra made the ultimate sacrifice. This is the story of how one ordinary boy became the guardian of an alien legacy, and why the stars will never be the same again. Story begins as, it all started with a noise, a soft, almost musical hum that I couldn't quite place. I was out in the barn, cleaning up after the horses when I heard it. At first, I thought it was the wind or maybe one of the old machines acting up again, but something about it felt off. It wasn't a sound you'd expect to hear on a quiet farm in the middle of nowhere. The kind of sound that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up like the universe itself was whispering a secret just for you. I grabbed a flashlight and followed the noise, my boots crunching against the hay-strewn floor. The hum grew louder as I approached the far corner of the barn, where we stored old equipment and forgotten junk. My heart started to race. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, maybe a raccoon or a stray cat, but what I found was nothing I could have imagined. There, crouched behind a stack of rusty tools, was a girl. But she wasn't just any girl. Her skin had a faint, silvery glow, like moonlight caught in a jar. Her eyes were large and luminous, like twin moons, and they stared at me with a mix of fear and curiosity. She was wearing some kind of sleek, metallic suit that shimmered in the dim light, and her silver hair fell in soft waves around her face. She looked terrified, like a wild animal caught in a trap. Who are you?" I stammered, taking a step back. My voice sounded strange, even to me, like it didn't belong in this moment. She flinched, pressing herself further into the shadows. "Please," she whispered, her voice soft and melodic, like wind chimes on a quiet night. "Don't hurt me." I froze. Her voice wasn't just strange, it was otherworldly. And then it hit me. She wasn't human. She was an alien. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Aliens weren't supposed to be real. They were supposed to be in movies and books, not hiding in my barn. "I'm not going to hurt you," I said slowly, crouching down to her level. I kept my distance, not wanting to scare her any more than she already was. "My name's Jake. What's yours?" She hesitated, her glowing eyes studying me like she was trying to decide if I could be trusted. Finally, she spoke. "Lyra," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "My name is Lyra." "Okay, Lyra," I said, nodding. My heart was still pounding, but I tried to keep my voice calm. "What are you doing here?" "In my barn, I mean." She glanced around nervously, as if expecting someone, or something, to appear. "I crashed," she said, her voice trembling. "My ship, it was damaged. I had to land here. I didn't mean to intrude." I blinked, trying to process what she was saying. "You crashed? Like a spaceship?" She nodded, her expression serious. "Yes. And now, they're looking for me." "Who's looking for you?" I asked, my voice rising slightly. The idea that there were others out there, others like her, or maybe something worse, sent a chill down my spine. She shook her head, her silver hair shimmering in the dim light. "I can't tell you. Not yet. It's too dangerous." I wanted to press her for more, but the look in her eyes stopped me. She was scared, really scared. And if she was telling the truth, then whatever was after her was probably something I didn't want to mess with. "Okay," I said, standing up. "Let's get you inside. You can't stay out here." She hesitated, her luminous eyes searching mine. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Thank you, Jake." I reached out a hand to help her up, and she took it. Her skin was cool to the touch, and there was a faint hum of energy, like static electricity. As we walked back to the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had just taken a turn into something much bigger and much stranger than I could have ever imagined. The night air was cool, and the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if they were watching us. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but one thing was certain. Nothing was ever going to be the same again. I brought Lyra into the house, careful to keep her hidden. My mom was out visiting relatives, and my dad was working late, so the house was empty. I led her to the basement, where it was quiet and out of the way. The basement wasn't much, just a few old couches, a dusty TV, and some boxes of junk, but it was the best I could do on short notice. "Stay here," I said, handing her a blanket from the couch. "I'll get you some food and water." She nodded, wrapping the blanket around herself. It looked strange against her shimmering suit, but she didn't seem to mind. "Thank you," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. As I headed back upstairs, my mind was racing. An alien in my barn. This was the kind of thing you saw in movies, not something that happened to a regular guy like me. But there she was, real as anything. I grabbed some bread, fruit, and a bottle of water from the kitchen and brought it down to her. She ate quietly, her movements graceful and deliberate. I couldn't help but stare. She was unlike anyone or anything I'd ever seen. "Lyra," I said after a while, breaking the silence. "You said they're looking for you. Who are they?" She looked up, her luminous eyes meeting mine. For a moment, she seemed to hesitate, like she was weighing her words carefully. "They're called the Corax," she said finally, her voice low and serious. "They're dangerous. If they find me, they'll take me back. And if they find out you helped me." She trailed off, but the implication was clear. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "What do they want with you?" She hesitated again, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I can't tell you everything. Not yet. But I need your help, Jake. I need to fix my ship and get off this planet before they find me." I nodded, though my stomach was in knots. Helping her meant risking everything. My safety, my family, maybe even my life. But looking at her, so small and scared, I knew I couldn't just turn her away. "Okay," I said, my voice steady despite the fear creeping into my chest. "I'll help you, but you have to promise me one thing." "What?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. Her silver hair caught the dim light, making her look almost ethereal. "Tell me the truth," I said. "When it's safe. I need to know what's really going on." She studied me for a moment, her glowing eyes searching mine. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I promise." For the next few hours, we talked. Well, mostly I talked. I told her about my life on the farm, about my parents, about how boring and ordinary everything was before she showed up. She listened quietly, her expression unreadable. Every now and then, she'd ask a question about Earth, about humans, about me. Her curiosity seemed genuine, and it made me wonder what her world was like. As the night wore on, I could see her starting to relax. She even smiled a little when I told her about the time I accidentally locked myself in the chicken coop. But there was still a tension in the air, a sense that something bigger was looming just out of sight. "Jake," she said suddenly, her voice soft but urgent. "There's something you should know." I leaned forward, my heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" She hesitated, her fingers twisting the edge of the blanket. "The Corax, they're not just after me. They're after something I have. Something important." My mind raced. "What is it?" She shook her head, her expression pained. "I can't tell you. Not yet. It's too dangerous. But if they find it..." She trailed off, her eyes filled with fear. I wanted to press her for more, but I could see how much it was costing her to even say that much. "Okay," I said, nodding. "We'll figure it out. Together." She looked at me, her luminous eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Jake. You don't know how much this means to me." I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but one thing was clear. Lyra needed my help. And for reasons I couldn't quite explain, I was willing to give it. The night stretched on, and as I sat there in the dim light of the basement, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had just taken a turn into something much bigger and much stranger than I could have ever imagined. The stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter, as if they were watching us. And somewhere out there, the Corax were searching. But for now, Lyra was safe. And that was enough. The next morning, I woke up early, my mind still spinning from everything that had happened. For a moment, I thought it might have been a dream. Lyra, the Corax, the strange hum in the barn. But when I went downstairs and peeked into the basement, she was still there, curled up on the couch with the blanket wrapped around her. She looked so small, so vulnerable, like a child lost in a storm. I grabbed some more food and water and brought it down to her. She stirred as I approached, her luminous eyes blinking open. Morning, I said, trying to sound cheerful. How'd you sleep? She sat up, stretching slightly. I don't sleep the way you do, she said, her voice soft. But I rested. Thank you. I nodded, setting the food down on the coffee table. We need to figure out a plan. You said your ship is damaged. What do we need to fix it? She hesitated, her fingers twisting the edge of the blanket again. It's complicated, she said. The damage is significant. I'll need tools, materials, things I don't have. Well, I've got tools, I said, trying to sound confident. My dad's got a whole workshop out back. If you tell me what you need, I can get it. She looked at me, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Jake. But it's not just about the tools. The Corax, they're still out there. If they catch us, I swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling over me. We'll be careful, I said. We'll work at night when no one's around. And if we see anything suspicious, we'll stop. She nodded, though I could see the fear in her eyes. Okay, but we have to be quick. Every moment we're here, the risk grows. That night, after my parents had gone to bed, I snuck Lyra out to the barn. The air was cool, and the stars above seemed to shine brighter than usual, as if they were watching us. The barn was dark, but I'd brought a flashlight, and Lyra's suit gave off a faint glow that lit our way. Her ship was tucked into the far corner of the barn, hidden behind stacks of old equipment. It was smaller than I'd expected, about the size of a car, and sleek, with smooth, metallic surfaces that reflected the dim light. But it was badly damaged. One side was scorched and dented, and there were cracks running through the hull. Lyra ran her hand along the damaged surface, her expression pained. It's worse than I thought, she said softly. The core is intact, but the propulsion system is damaged. Without it, I can't leave this planet. I stepped closer, shining the flashlight on the damaged area. What do we need to fix it? She hesitated, then pointed to a series of panels on the side of the ship. These need to be replaced. And the energy conduits, they're fractured. I'll need to realign them. I nodded, though I didn't fully understand what she was talking about. Okay, let's get to work. We spent the next few hours working on the ship. Lyra guided me through the repairs, her hands moving with precision as she explained what needed to be done. I did my best to keep up, handing her tools and holding things in place as she worked. It was slow going, but by the time the first light of dawn started to creep over the horizon, we'd made some progress. We'll need more time, Lyra said, her voice tinged with frustration. And there are parts one don't have, components that aren't native to this planet. I frowned, wiping the sweat from my brow. Is there any way to make do with what we've got? She shook her head. Not if we want the ship to fly. Without those components, the repairs won't hold. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Okay, we'll figure something out. But for now, we need to get you back inside before anyone sees us. She nodded, and we carefully covered the ship with a tarp before sneaking back to the house. As we made our way through the quiet farm, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, and I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see the Corax lurking in the shadows. When we got back to the basement, Lyra turned to me, her luminous eyes filled with worry. Jake, she said softly, I don't know how much longer we can keep this up. The Corax, they're relentless. They won't stop until they find me. I looked at her, my heart aching at the fear in her voice. We'll figure it out, I said, trying to sound confident. We'll find a way to get you home. I promise. She nodded, though I could see the doubt in her eyes. As I left her in the basement and headed back upstairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The Corax were out there, and they were getting closer. But for now, Lyra was safe. And that was enough. The days blurred together as Lyra and I worked tirelessly to repair her ship. Every night, after my parents had gone to bed, we'd sneak out to the barn and continue where we'd left off. The work was slow and painstaking, and the more we dug into the ship's systems, the more I realized how far out of my depth I was. Lyra's technology was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Sleek, glowing panels, intricate circuits, and energy conduits that pulsed with a faint, otherworldly light. It was like trying to fix a spaceship with a hammer and duct tape. One night, as we were struggling to realign a fractured energy conduit, Lyra let out a frustrated sigh. This isn't working, she said, her voice tinged with desperation. "The components we need, they're not here. Without them, the ship will never fly." I wiped the sweat from my brow, my hands smudged with grease and soot. "Is there any way to, I don't know, improvise? Use something from Earth?" She shook her head, her silver hair shimmering in the dim light. "It's not that simple. These components are made from materials that don't exist on your planet. Without them, the ship's systems won't stabilize." I leaned against the ship, my mind racing. "Okay, so what do we do? Is there another way off this planet? Another ship, maybe?" Lyra hesitated, her luminous eyes flickering with uncertainty. "There might be something, but it's dangerous." I straightened up, my heart pounding. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, her voice dropping to a whisper. "There's a beacon, a signal device. If I activate it, it could summon help from my people. But it's risky. The Corax might detect it too." I frowned, the weight of her words settling over me. "How risky?" She looked at me, her expression grim. "If they find us before my people do, we're dead. Both of us." I swallowed hard, my mind racing. It was a gamble, a huge one. But what other choice did we have? The ship was beyond repair, and the Corax were getting closer. I could feel it in the air, in the way the nights seemed darker, the shadows deeper. "Okay," I said finally, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my chest. "We'll do it, but we need to be smart about it. Where's the beacon?" She reached into a hidden compartment in her suit and pulled out a small, glowing device. It was about the size of a smartphone, with a smooth metallic surface and a single button in the center. "This is it," she said, holding it out to me. "But we need to get to high ground to activate it. Somewhere with a clear line of sight to the sky." I nodded, my mind already working through the possibilities. "There's a hill about a mile from here. It's the highest point around. We can go there tonight." She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the beacon. "Jake, if something goes wrong," I cut her off, my voice firm. "It won't. We'll be careful. And if the Corax show up, we'll deal with it. Together." She looked at me, her luminous eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Jake, for everything." I managed a small smile, though my stomach was in knots. "Don't thank me yet. We're not out of this mess." That night, we set out for the hill. The air was cool, and the stars above seemed to shine brighter than ever, as if they were watching us. Lyra moved silently beside me, her glowing suit casting faint shadows on the ground. Every sound, every rustle of leaves, every distant animal call made my heart race. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see the Corax lurking in the shadows. When we reached the top of the hill, Lyra took a deep breath and held up the beacon. "Ready?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my heart pounding. "Do it." She pressed the button, and the beacon came to life, emitting a soft, pulsing glow. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a beam of light shot up into the sky, piercing the darkness like a laser. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. "Now we wait," Lyra said, her voice trembling. We sat there in the silence, the beam of light stretching endlessly into the stars. The minutes felt like hours, and every second that passed made my anxiety grow. What if the Corax found us first? What if no one came at all? But then, just as I was starting to lose hope, a faint hum filled the air. It was soft at first, almost imperceptible, but it grew louder and louder until it was impossible to ignore. I looked up, my heart racing, and saw a ship descending from the sky. It was sleek and silver, its surface reflecting the light of the stars. Lyra's face lit up with relief. "They're here," she whispered. But before I could respond, a second hum filled the air, deeper, darker, and far more menacing. I turned, my blood running cold, and saw another ship descending. It was larger, darker, and bristling with weapons. The Corax had found us. The air was thick with tension as the two ships descended from the sky. Lyra's people had arrived, but so had the Corax. The sleek, silver ship of her allies hovered gracefully, its surface gleaming under the starlight. But the Corax ship was a monstrous thing, dark, angular, and bristling with weapons that glinted ominously. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized we were caught in the middle of a standoff. "Jake," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. "We need to get out of here. Now." I nodded, my eyes darting between the two ships. "Which way?" Before she could answer, a beam of light shot down from the Korax ship, illuminating the hilltop. A voice boomed from above, cold and menacing. "Lyra of Alara, you cannot escape us. Surrender the heart, and we may let you live." Lyra's face paled, her luminous eyes wide with fear. "They're here for the heart," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "If they get it, everything is lost." I grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the cover of the trees. "We need to move. Now." We ran, our footsteps crunching against the dry grass. The beam of light followed us, casting long, eerie shadows as we darted through the trees. My lungs burned, and my legs ached, but I didn't dare stop. Behind us, I could hear the hum of the Korax ship growing louder, like a predator closing in on its prey. "Jake," Lyra gasped, her voice drained. "They're going to catch us." "Not if I can help it," I said, my mind racing. I scanned the area, looking for somewhere, anywhere, we could hide. Then I saw it, an old, abandoned shed tucked into the trees. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. "In there," I said, pointing to the shed. We sprinted toward it, ducking inside just as the beam of light swept over the area. The shed was small and cramped, filled with rusted tools and cobwebs, but it was enough to shield us from the Korax's searchlight. We crouched in the darkness, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. "Lyra," I whispered, my voice urgent. "What's the heart? Why do they want it so badly?" She hesitated, her luminous eyes flickering with uncertainty. "The heart of Alara is a source of immense power. It can create or destroy entire worlds. The Korax want to use it to conquer the galaxy. I was sent to protect it, to keep it out of their hands." My mind reeled. "And you have it? Here." She nodded, her expression grim. "Yes, but if they capture me, they'll take it. And if they do," she trailed off, but the implication was clear. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Okay, so we can't let that happen. What's the plan?" Before she could answer, the shed door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. I froze, my heart pounding, but then I realized it wasn't a Korax soldier. It was a tall, silver-skinned figure with glowing eyes and a sleek, metallic suit. One of Lyra's people. "Lyra," the figure said, their voice calm but urgent. "We need to go. Now." Lyra's face lit up with relief. "Kale, you're here." Kale nodded, their glowing eyes flicking to me. "And you must be Jake. Lyra has told me about you." "Cool, me. We don't have much time." I hesitated, my mind racing. "What about the Korax?" Kale's expression darkened. "They're closing in, but if we move quickly, we can get you both to safety." Lyra grabbed my hand, her grip firm. "Jake, we have to go. Please." I looked at her, at the fear and determination in her eyes, and nodded. "Okay, let's go." We followed Kale out of the shed and into the trees. The Korax ship was still hovering above, its searchlight sweeping the area, but Kale moved with a confidence that was almost unnerving. They led us through the woods, their movements silent and precise, until we reached a small clearing. The silver ship was waiting, its ramp lowered and glowing softly in the darkness. "Get in," Kale said, their voice firm. "We need to leave. Now." Lyra and I climbed aboard, the ship's interior sleek and futuristic. As the ramp closed behind us, I felt a surge of relief. We were safe. For now. But as the ship lifted off, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The Korax were still out there, and they wouldn't stop until they had the heart. And as I looked at Lyra, her face pale and her eyes filled with worry, I knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The inside of the ship was unlike anything I'd ever seen. The walls were smooth and metallic, glowing faintly with a soft blue light. Panels of alien symbols flickered across screens, and the air hummed with a low, steady vibration. It felt alive, like the ship itself was breathing. Lyra and I sat on a sleek bench, strapped in as Kale piloted the ship through the night sky. My heart was still racing, but the adrenaline was starting to wear off, leaving me exhausted and overwhelmed. Where are we going? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Kale didn't look back, their hands moving deftly over the controls. To a safe place, somewhere the Corax can't find us. Lyra reached over and squeezed my hand, her touch cool but comforting. It's going to be okay, Jake. We're safe now. I wanted to believe her, but the look in her eyes told me she wasn't entirely convinced. The Corax were relentless, and they wouldn't stop until they had the heart. I glanced at Kale, their silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. What happens if they find us again? Kale's expression darkened. They won't, but if they do, we'll be ready. The ship soared through the night, the stars blurring into streaks of light as we picked up speed. I stared out the window, my mind racing. Just a few days ago, I'd been a regular guy living on a farm. Now, I was flying through space with an alien girl and her guardian running from a ruthless enemy. It felt like a dream, or maybe a nightmare. After what felt like hours, the ship began to descend. We landed in a remote, rocky area, surrounded by towering cliffs and jagged peaks. The air was thin and cold, and the landscape was barren, almost otherworldly. Kale led us out of the ship and into a hidden cave, its entrance concealed by a wall of rock. Inside, the cave was warm and surprisingly spacious, with glowing crystals embedded in the walls that cast a soft, ethereal light. This is one of our safe houses, Kale explained, their voice echoing slightly in the cavern. We'll stay here until we can figure out our next move. Lyra nodded, her expression grim. The Corax won't stop until they have the heart. We need to keep it safe. I frowned, my mind racing. What exactly is the heart? Why is it so important? Lyra hesitated, her luminous eyes flickering with uncertainty. The heart of Alara is a source of immense power. It can create or destroy entire worlds. My people have protected it for generations, but the Corax want to use it for their own gain. If they get it, they'll destroy everything in their path. I swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling over me. And you have it? Here. She nodded, her expression pained. Yes, but it's not just an object, Jake. It's a part of me. I blinked, confused. What do you mean? Before she could answer, Kale interrupted, their voice sharp. We don't have time for this. The Corax are still out there, and they're getting closer. We need to prepare. Lyra looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. Jake, I need you to trust me. No matter what happens, you have to promise me you'll protect the heart. I nodded, though my mind was spinning. I promise. But Lyra, what aren't you telling me? She opened her mouth to answer, but before she could speak, the ground beneath us shook violently. The crystals in the walls flickered, and a low, ominous hum filled the air. Kale's eyes widened, their glowing gaze darting to the entrance of the cave. They're here, they said, their voice tight with urgency. Lyra grabbed my hand, her grip firm. Jake, we need to go. Now. We ran deeper into the cave, the walls closing in around us as the hum grew louder. The Corax had found us, and this time there was no escape. The air was thick with tension, and my heart pounded in my chest as I realized what was at stake. The heart, Lyra, the fate of entire worlds, it all came down to this moment. As we reached the end of the cave, Lyra turned to me, her luminous eyes filled with a quiet intensity. Jake, she said, her voice trembling. There's something you need to know. But before she could finish, the cave entrance exploded and the Corax stormed in, their weapons glowing with a menacing light. Kale stepped forward, their stance defensive, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. Lyra's grip tightened on my hand, her voice barely above a whisper. No matter what happens, Jake, remember your promise. I nodded, my heart aching with fear and determination. I will. The Corax advanced, their cold, mechanical voices echoing through the cave. This was it, the moment everything would change. And as I stood there, facing an enemy I couldn't hope to defeat, I knew one thing for certain. I would protect Lyra and the heart, no matter the cost. The cave was chaos. The Corax stormed in, their weapons glowing with a menacing light, their cold, mechanical voices echoing off the walls. Kale stepped forward, their stance defensive, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. Lyra's grip tightened on my hand, her luminous eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling. "There's something you need to know." Before she could finish, a Korax soldier lunged at us, its weapon raised. Kale intercepted it, their movements swift and precise, but more Korax were closing in. I pulled Lyra behind me, my heart pounding as I scanned the cave for an escape route. There was none. We were trapped. "Lyra, what's the plan?" I shouted over the noise, my voice barely audible. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "The heart, it's not just an object, Jake. It's me." I blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath, her voice steady despite the chaos around us. "The heart of Alara is a living energy source. It's a part of me, bound to my life force. If the Korax capture me, they'll extract it, and it will destroy everything in its path. But if I release it willingly, it can stop them. Permanently." My stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" She squeezed my hand, her grip firm. "I have to sacrifice myself, Jake. It's the only way to stop them." "No," I shouted, my voice cracking. "There has to be another way." She shook her head, her luminous eyes filled with sorrow. "There isn't. But you have to promise me something." "Anything," I said, my heart aching. "Protect my people," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tell them what happened. Tell them. I did this for them." Tears welled to my eyes, but I nodded. "I promise." She smiled, a small, sad smile, and then she stepped forward, her body beginning to glow with a soft, golden light. The Korax hesitated, their weapons lowering as they stared at her in awe, or maybe fear. Lyra raised her hands, the light growing brighter and brighter until it filled the entire cave. "Goodbye, Jake," she said, her voice echoing with a strange, otherworldly resonance. "Thank you for everything." And then, with a blinding flash of light, she was gone. The cave fell silent. The Korax soldiers stood frozen, their weapons slipping from their hands as the light consumed them. One by one, they disintegrated, their forms dissolving into nothingness. The light spread, filling the cave, and then bursting out into the night sky, illuminating the landscape like a second sun. When the light finally faded, the Korax were gone. The cave was empty, save for Kale and me. I fell to my knees, my heart shattered. Lyra was gone. She'd sacrificed herself to save us, to save everyone. Kale approached me, their glowing eyes filled with sorrow. She was brave, they said, their voice soft. Braver than any of us. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. She was amazing. Kale placed a hand on my shoulder, their touch cool but comforting. Her sacrifice will not be in vain. We will honor her memory, and we will protect her people, as she asked. I looked up at them, my vision blurred by tears. What happens now? Kale's expression was grim but resolute. Now we rebuild. We prepare. The Korax may be gone, but there are other threats out there, and we must be ready. I nodded, my heart heavy but determined. Lyra had given everything to protect us. The least I could do was honor her sacrifice. As I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of the battle, I made a silent promise. I would protect her people. I would tell her story, and I would never forget the alien girl who had changed everything. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if they were watching over us. And somewhere out there, among the endless expanse of the universe, Lyra's light still burned. A beacon of hope, a reminder of what we were fighting for. And as I looked up at the night sky, I knew one thing for certain. Her legacy would live on. Forever. Here is the story ends. If you enjoyed and want to watch more thrilling sci-fi adventures, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Dive into epic battles, explore distant galaxies, and join brave heroes as they fight for survival against impossible odds. Let us know in comments if you want next chapters to publish soon. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and become part of the journey. Together, we'll keep the last light burning. Subscribe now and let the adventure continue.